Welcome, once again, to the problem with everything. As you can see, the screen is dark. Black even, though not black since it is lit by LEDs, light-emitting diodes. What is black light? I don't care, that's not the problem. Black is not a problem. I would say white is more of a problem, and more difficult to understand. White light through a prism becomes a rainbow, but a rainbow is not a problem. Today, or rather, this morning, in that interval between when the sun has set and when the sun has risen, the problem I would like us to consider is work. Now, personally, I do not consider work itself to be a problem in all instances. And I never consider effort to be a problem, which is the way and manner in which a physicist describes work. However, there is a problem with work I would propose for your consideration. When one works, one performs activities, whether they be thoughtful and considerate, whether they be dominant and crushing, whether they be technical, emotional, mechanical, chemical, biological. When one works, one engages in activities. Now, activities, obviously, stand or fall on their own nature. One man's work might be to collect garbage from bins. That is good work. He is helping people. One's activities whilst one works might be to write stories, fiction. Here, there may well be a division between good work and evil work. But I'm not talking about the content of the work. I'm talking about the natural, everyday experience that we all go through when we go to work. When we go to work, we do activities. Those activities are not the sort of activities we do whilst resting. If we are fortunate to have rest. When one rests, one might just listen to their own body and like, oh fuck me mate, I need a sleep. Or, fuck me mate, I need a fuck. Or, fuck me mate, how about some Subway? And this is not sponsored by Subway, actually. I hope you get my point though. When you rest, you're beholden to no one. And you can listen to that which you ought to cherish. And there is a saying, no man ever hated his own body. Now, if you don't hate something, what do you do with it? I mean, I know what I do with things I hate. I condemn them to hell, in my own manner, in my own way. And if you have a problem with me doing that, guess what? I don't even need to say it. I'm sure many men and women and children, indeed, have attempted to do what I am claiming I do to them that I hate. They say, damn this, goddamn that, damn this, damn that. No different to me. It's a pretty ordinary response, regardless of your theological position. But I'm not claiming there's a problem with that. I'm claiming there's a problem with our experience of work. Because when we go to work, we do activities, just as when we rest, we do activities. However, when we work, those activities come to us in a different manner, depending on where we work. Now I'll draw on my own experience as ever. And I've worked as a magician, my first profession, according to men. Because men say a profession is what you get paid for. Actually, they say you're an amateur until you start getting paid. And my first paid gig was as a fucking magician. I kid you not. Now in that role, even though I was paid, what I was paid for was just to fucking show up and to entertain some little kids. And that's not creepy, because at that point, I was a little kid. And you know what? I did not force the kids to be entertained by me, even though that's what I was paid to do. They could be entertained or not. And in fact, some of them quickly cottoned on to the fact that I rehashed my tricks again and again and again. And they're like, what the fuck? We've seen the cup and balls routine, mate. Though they didn't say it like a man would. They said it like children would, to a child, behind a desk, with his little balls and his little cups, saying, hey, what about this? How many balls are there? Where's the ball? Which cup is the ball under? Or some shit. I can't remember the patter of the day. But that was work. That was definitely work. I was paid for it, right? It was very enjoyable and very free. My preparation was entirely autonomous, not directed by them which employed me. Even though them which employed me had many claims over me, it was both my school and my family that gave me that employment. And neither my school nor my family tried to reach into my soul to interfere with the activity of my spirit upon my body, which was engaged in doing its damnedest to prepare for my role, which at that point involved entertaining children with magic tricks. And until recently, it was the highest paid gig that I've ever had. Another case in point is my next profession, being a soldier. Now that was vastly different to being a magician. Still work, of a different type. Before signing up to be a soldier, they actually ask you to make an oath. When you make an oath, it's a serious matter. The oath, indeed, that I made is a serious matter to protect the nations and peoples of this land. It does not end. There was no duration that came out of my mouth in regards to the oath that I spoke, even though I've been discharged for several years, honourably, if there is such a distinction here, I don't know. The oath remains. In this case of making an oath, it doesn't really matter what your boss says, and this point is made to soldiers as well. If your boss gives you a command that is against the Geneva Convention, for instance, on warfare, you best not fucking follow it. That's your responsibility. Your oath is not to your employer, unless you make it such, and a fool would do that, but I did not do that. Draw your own conclusions. When one makes an oath, what does one make an oath to? And I ask you to consider what you would make your oath to, were you to make an oath. I didn't consider it, I just made it, and apparently it was unto someone else. Not even the head of state. Apparently, to the maker of the head of state. Right? And that oath persists. And that's also work. And that work was not so bad, not so terrible, because it was not so discriminatory. And there were reasons for the aggression that we cultivated. There were reasons for the chains that we accepted, the chain of command being one. There are good reasons for a military to have a chain of command, and not but one, but many. However, in a civilian workplace, a hierarchy is a damnable thing, and them that exist within a hierarchy often fall for the sucker punch of thinking, well, I've been accorded this status among men, so I will wield this status among men. I will tell men plainly, go, at the end of a workday, and expect them to go at my command. But of course, a civilian has no right to command his neighbour in that manner. But such a civilian might indeed attempt to be quite a bastard to them that work for him, in his own niggling ways. And I'm pretty sure we've all endured bastardization in the workplace. I know I have previously, and I've quite well developed capacity to endure it. And I trust you too. Not only bastardization in the workplace, but within society. I know there are people groups among us that have endured bastardization by this society for a long time, and it's only recently that I've discovered that they belong to nations of this land which I am sworn to protect as a soldier, as every soldier in this land is also sworn to protect, whether they know it or not. Here I am. I claim to be a Darug man because I know the word Darug, and I assume Darug is a word in the Darug language, and a man is defined in many ways, one of which being by what he does, and what I'm doing now is speaking language, even a little bit of Darug, and here I am a Darug man. Amen. Anyway, thanks for listening. I don't know how far we got. That was mainly personal history about my own work. Work is a bitch occasionally, but work is also good occasionally, and bitches are good as well. I love my dog. Anyway. I don't know what you'll get out of that. But at least it adds to the list of what's the problem with everything, and we've already started dividing good from evil within this one, which is also a good thing to do for those of us who do not follow Friedrich Nietzsche all the way into wherever he wants to go. But remember, he caught syphilis, and I don't know if he wrote Beyond Good and Evil when he had syphilis or before. So I don't need to consider whether one gets beyond good and evil before I even understand what good and evil is. And I guess that's one thing we get out of this. We get to start considering what good and evil is. And yes, work can be both. I would continue if you would continue listening. And of course, you can always press pause, or you can always close the tab or close the browser, or do what I like to do when I get super bored and open up some porn. Although thankfully I haven't done that terribly recently. The problem with everything, I'll probably get to that too. But today we're talking about work, and indeed prostitution can be a type of work, the oldest profession they say. And indeed pornography means writing about prostitution in the ancient Greek. And indeed the Bible is full of pornography, for it writes about a whore named Babylon, mystery of mysteries, Babylon the Great, she who fornicates with kings. And yes, fornication is one of the problems with everything, but we don't need to consider that at this point. Especially not a man such as me who's been without for such a long time. Not inclined to rush towards considering that even. But we're talking about work, and prostitution is a form of work. And we've already said work is a problem. What happens when a prostitute accepts payment for sex? What happens when a garbage man accepts payment for accepting the issue of trash from a house. Well, there's nothing wrong with having sex, I assure you. There is nothing wrong with accepting an issue from a man's temple, either. But there's a problem with work. Now, I don't say that this problem applies in every case. I said it did not apply in the case of soldiery, garbagery, or magicry. And you can look them up. Magicry, soldiery, and gargery, which is a word which is not. Pick your door. Find which door the real word lies behind. Is it door A, garbagery? Is it door B, magicry? Or is it door C, soldiery? And there is always the opportunity for there not to be a real word whatsoever, but one real word I know, which is logos. A beautiful, beautiful boy, I would say, to his star. But the problem with work, well, it's pretty difficult to describe a problem that is so extensive. 40 hours a week, fucking 48 weeks a year, fucking 30, fucking 50, fucking 60, fucking 70 years of a life. And thank God we fucking have our lives limited to no longer than 120 years for such a long time. Oh, and the problem with everything, most of that money goes to the fucking bank for an overpriced house. Through something called a mortgage, or mortgage as we say in Australia, mortgage. As they spell it, mortgage. And if you've read Terry Pratchett, you know Little Mort. Morty. Death. Because in French, mort means death. And their little mort means masturbation, actually, as far as I can recall. And a gauge, as you might well know as an engineer, is a type of monitoring tool. It doesn't alert, but it does monitoring. It's very important to have gauges to monitor the speed of your vehicle. Imagine if a man with such authority stated so clearly that it's not a monitor unless it alerts you. Well, how does the speedometer alert the driver? For fuck's sake. I know I can get up to 180 k's an hour in a Commodore without having been alerted by my speedometer. I know that for a fact. They can go that fast and faster. I've been a passenger once, gone 210 k's down a dirt track. The speedometer never alerted me, nor the driver, nor anyone else. And yet I really do insist it is bloody well useful to monitor the speed of a travelling vehicle using a gauge. And the gauge we're here concerned with is the mort gauge, the death gauge. Because back in France, back in the day, when they came up with this fucking frivolous idea, a lot of people had property, but they didn't have money to eat. And what they did was they went to the bank and said, hey, fuck, I'm starving, but I've got this fucking grand estate with all these trees and shit on it. How about you take the fucking family inheritance? And they weren't Jews, but, you know, they still have a thing about inheritance. Rightly so. They said, well, you can take my family's inheritance from eons and eons and fucking how long ago, I don't care. Just give me some fucking money to, you know, piss against the wall and have some bread every occasionally and, you know, buy some whores and whatnot. And don't have to tell you everything. You don't have to have a fucking transaction for transaction of everything I spend the money. No, they said, no, we don't. We'll never need that. Just give us the deed to your property. We'll keep it in our safe, and when you drop it, we'll collect. And that's a fucking mortgage. But we reverse it over here because actually none of us can fucking afford fucking land ourselves anymore. So we have to come to the bank in advance before we even have a place to live. We say, hey, how about you give us one of them mortgages in reverse? And I'm pretty sure it might have been Ned Kelly type at first that said that. Look, I've got fuck all, but some cunt has employed me. He's going to pay me until I drop dead. Oh, drop it here? Yes, we've got something for that. Oh, we could repurpose our mortgage. Oh, goodness me. And now they're extracting our very fucking life. So they think, because they're extracting our labour power, our congealed labour power, as a Marxist would refer to money. And that's part of the problem with work, I must say. That we are sort of what is often referred to as debt slaves. And I fucking kid you not. To have a house in Australia, to be able to vote in local council elections, the typical member of Australian society needs to be a debt slave. And that's part of the problem with work as well. As I've said once before, and as I'm fond of saying on this particular series, I'm pretty fucking sure there's a problem with everything. Thank you very much for listening to this rather extended episode. You have just endured an extra 100% of duration of the problem with everything in one dose. If you are still alive, if you are still, and if you are emotional, if you are emotional, if you are brave, if you are cowardly, if you are strong, if you are weak, nevertheless, you, dear listener, have endured more than an extra 100% of the normal length of the problem with everything, as established by historical record. And I hope you give a fuck about that, because that's actually quite an achievement, I would say. Of course, just because you've only seen a problem with everything episode go for 20 minutes, whereas the first two went for 10 minutes, and this one seems abnormally long for a problem with everything episode, you might actually consider, how long could this bastard bang on for about any particular fucking problem whatsoever? If he's banged on that long about work, and I still don't have any fucking idea what he's going to do about this fucking problem, or how he's even going to make it clear to me, the extent of it. And that is for us, in conversation. This is just opening the conversation. I ask you to consider what I've said. You know, consider it in conversation if you'd like. A bit here, a bit there, a little here, a little there. And I will too. And perhaps one day we'll meet face to face. And perhaps we'll meet many other people in the meantime. And we're only focusing on the problems for this series, and we'll get to a point where we've covered most of the ones I consider personally to be quite conducive to our current predicament. All right? But I've got already in view, somewhere in my imagination, another series. A more optimistic series, perhaps. But first of all, let's just fucking see the lay of the land and at least enumerate a fair few of the problems that exist and chew the fat about them a little. And sorry if the quality of the transmission is deteriorating. The video I upload is digital, doesn't degrade. And it looks fine on my machine, mate. But not when I rewatch it on YouTube. There, it's got a lot of fucking jittery nonsense on it. And I hope that's not I trust that's not the same for you. But I don't know. So anyway, now we're up to, a little bit longer than an extra 100% anyway. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you very much. And, custom. Tradition. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.